Dalia, thank you so much for joining me here on the Homeschool Sanity Show. I am excited to talk about our topic today, which is chicken keeping. I was just telling my husband about it, and he agreed with me that my audience is really going to enjoy our conversation. But before we jump into it, I would love to have you introduce yourself and your family to us.
Well, my name is Dalia Montessoro, but most people know me as the president of Chickenlandia. I have a YouTube channel called Welcome to Chickenlandia. That's how most people know me. But I've been a backyard chicken educator for, oh gosh, I think 12 years, I think.
Wow.
I live in the Pacific Northwest with my husband. I have two boys. One is 14 and one is 10. I am a former homeschooling mother. I was just talking before we got on. I was telling you that I wish I had this podcast to listen to because I did lose my sanity somewhat.
I get it.
Not sure if it's come back yet. But so I do have some experience with that. But, I'm an educator and I'm interested in getting people excited about chickens and getting people to experience the joy of chicken keeping. That is what I'm all about, just bringing people the peace and joy of chickens because it really has changed my life.
That's awesome. I mean, I love your title so much. It's so much cooler than my title. What did you say you were?
You can
You're a
change it.
backyard chicken educator? Is that it? Okay. Or chicken
Yeah, I
keeping
kind of just
educator? I don't.
I did a TEDx talk years ago. I think
Wow.
it was in 2017 I did a TEDx talk.
Okay.
And they said, introduce yourself. I was just saying, I teach people about chickens. And they said, well, introduce yourself as a backyard chicken educator. And that it just stuck.
I love it so
That's what I
much.
am.
I have to come up with a cooler title for myself. I'm telling you. Okay. So, um, I want to know what got you interested in chicken keeping, but I'm going to tell you, how you started off homeschooling and then you're like, I'm out. I'm out. I actually started off my childhood as a chicken keeper. I grew up on a farm where we had chickens and we sold chickens for eating. We sold eggs and I could not keep my sanity doing that as an adult. So we're just kind of flipped. We're the mirror
Yeah.
opposites. But I would love to know what got you interested in it? What gave you such a passion for it?
Oh gosh, I call it divine intervention. But let me let me give you a little bit of a backstory. I was working as a personal assistant in Hollywood. Actually, I was being a personal assistant, but I was really wanting to be like the next great American filmmaker. That was my dream. That was why I had moved to Los Angeles. I'm originally from from Duncanville, Texas, which is around Dallas area. Um, Met my husband. We started getting serious, started talking about getting married, and then it was like, look, I don't want to raise a family in Los Angeles. And so we decided to move. And at that point, I had been working in Hollywood for about 5 years. I had really given it a shot. And it just really felt like, you know what, this isn't for me. And it's okay. So we moved to Bellingham, Washington, which is where I live right now. And after a few years, I had a brand new baby boy. I was, I was in love with my family. I had a great life, but I still kind of felt that void, I felt that loss of that dream that I had. And
Mhm.
I was kind of mourning that more than I expected that I would. And the other thing is that I had a pretty bad case of postpartum depression. And at the time, I didn't even know that was happening to me. And the people around me didn't know because as a mother, I'm sure you understand that we're like chickens. We just keep pecking and scratching until we drop. It's like
Mhm,
we will
mhm.
do anything just to maintain the safety of our family and not think about what's actually going on with ourselves. So I wasn't in a great space. And then I just thought to myself, you know what? I really need something that belongs to me, just me. And I said, I'm going to get some chickens. And I promise you, I had no idea that I would end up being a backyard chicken educator. That wasn't what I thought I was going to be as a little kid. I didn't dream about that as a child. But when I brought my first batch of baby chicks home, I've told this story a million times, but it's like something came over me, and I do feel like it was divine intervention, because as I took these little baby chicks out of the bag, they were in a paper sack from the farm store. I took them out of the bag, and they're so vulnerable and resilient at the same time, taking them out of the bag, putting them into the brooder. And in that moment, my heart opened and a new dream came in. And I became so incredibly passionate about these creatures. I have no idea I didn't know that would happen. There's a famous Steven Spielberg quote that I actually don't know the actual quote, but I know he said something like, "The dream of your life will sneak up behind you." I'm paraphrasing, but that's exactly what happened. Like I became so incredibly passionate about these animals that my community actually they started to see that, and then people started asking me to help them. And before I knew it, the local community college was like, "Will you teach a class?" And I had had chickens for like 6 months and
6
didn't grow up with
months.
them. Yes. But of
Okay.
course I said yes. I said, "Oh, yeah." And then I did like all this research. And then from there, it was, people started asking me to do seminars. Then I got like a sponsorship. And before I knew it, I had a YouTube channel. I travel, I do seminars across the country. I've written a book. I have an online course, all this stuff. And it really kind of spawned from that need I instinctively knew I needed to heal. And I feel like I began to heal when I moved those baby chicks out of the bag into the brooder. That was when my healing journey began. And I'm still on that journey,
Okay.
but it's been absolutely incredible and amazing to see how it's unfolded. And I feel like it was like appointed, like I was appointed the president of Chickenlandia. Like it
So
just
cool.
happened.
Mhm.
So here I
Wow.
am. That's the story.
Well, I love that. It's such an interesting story, and I think we could pull a lot of different lessons out of there that we can even use with our kids to help them find their passions. I've been speaking this past year about um, how to motivate reluctant learners, and one of the things that I have learned is that we think that it's going to happen the way it happened for you, which I'm so thankful for your sake that it did happen like that. Like we take our kids to, I don't know, like rock climbing one time, and they're just going to go, "This is it. I was born to rock climb." But we know from research that it's actually more like teaching kids to eat vegetables, that it takes lots of opportunities and
Yes.
exposures for the typical person, not just kids, but the typical person to say, "You know what? I love this and I'm going to invest time and I have a passion for it." But I think it's so cool that it was just like, whoa, the angels were singing and you
They
were the
were.
keeper of the chickens.
Yep.
Um, so, some of my listeners right now are thinking, I don't want chickens. I live in the city.
That's
I'm in an
okay.
apartment. I'm not going to raise chickens. But I would love to have you share what has been a memorable moment or some kind of a lesson that you think any homeschooling family could kind of take away from what you have learned by being a backyard chicken educator.
Well, I think that one of the most amazing things that you can do if you have a flock of chickens, and especially if you have children that are learning, is to have a mother hen raise a batch of baby chicks.
Mm,
So that is just a beautiful. I mean, it's just such a beautiful experience. Of course, there's so much learning opportunity involved with that, just across all the subjects. So many things that you can
mm,
intertwine with that. But one experience that I had, it was just so special to me, and I always think about it. I didn't have chickens for that long, and I really wanted to hatch out some baby chicks, but I couldn't have any roosters. I could not have any. At the time, I felt like, oh, I can't have any roosters. It turns out I could, but
mm,
um, it's really hard for me to give animals away, and so I'm like, I have to be very proactive about that. So I decided instead to get a few duck eggs, and they were small ducks. So I figured, well, if I get a male duck, it's just going to be a small male duck, because a large male duck in a flock of chickens is not a good idea.
oh,
But it would
okay.
be a really little guy. So I got these eggs from a friend of mine. They were call duck eggs, and call ducks are like little miniature, extremely loud little ducks. Okay.
Okay.
That's why they're
Okay.
called call ducks.
Mhm.
They're always calling. And I put them under a little hen that I had that always wanted to hatch out babies. She was always sitting on the nest. She always wanted to be a mother. So I put some eggs under her. Well, unfortunately, when on the day that they started to hatch, my son, my oldest, he got croup, and
Mm.
he had already been to the hospital once with croup with very low oxygen count. So I was already, like the minute they start coughing, you're like, okay, here
Mhm.
goes, and you start to panic a little bit. So I was 100% just focusing on him. We even had the paramedics at the house and everything. This whole time, these ducks are hatching, and unfortunately, only one made it.
Mm,
And I felt so bad. Even though there's likely nothing I could have done, I felt like, oh, if I could have
mm,
been present for that, it would have been different. But
mm.
in life, sometimes we have to make very difficult choices. And of course, in that situation, I'm going to choose to put all my attention to my child who was struggling. But there was one little duck that that hatched under this mother hen, and it was the cutest thing I have ever seen, to see this duck following around this chicken. The duck thought it was a chicken. It really
Mhm.
even tried to like roost with the chickens, and ducks, depending on the breed that they are, they will usually stay on the ground. They won't go up higher to roost like chickens do. They just
Mhm.
sleep on the ground. But this duck would try and get up. She would go into the nesting boxes.
Wow.
And I ended up getting her some like duck friends. She still wanted to stay with her mother. And those two were a pair until the end of their lives. So
Wow.
the mama hen lived to be pretty old, and she passed away. And within the month, I think it was the month, maybe a couple months, the duck passed away.
Wow.
And they were just a bond. They were a
Mm,
bond, and I really think it's such a beautiful story of you know, of commitment, of love,
mhm,
of family, of resilience. And then
mhm,
of course you can talk about science, you can talk about
mhm.
hormones, you can talk about, biology, all of this stuff.
Right.
What was the drive that the hen had to
Mhm,
raise the baby that she didn't, this was not an egg that she laid, but she
mhm.
lovingly raised this baby duck. Um
Wow.
So just so many opportunities. And I love to share that one because kids just absolutely adore that. And I wish I had a
Yeah,
picture to show you because it's the cutest thing.
yeah, for sure. That that bonding, I think, and there is a technical term. Do you know what the technical term is? You know, when there's that window of opportunity where the bird has
Gosh.
been born, or even another type of animal is born, and then they imprint. That's what it is.
Yes. Yeah.
Imprinting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. I actually studied animal behaviorism in college because I found it so fascinating. But that, yeah, it's that short window of time, and they just imprint on. They just get so attached to whatever mother figure is near them. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. That is so cool, and I'm glad that you got to experience that. We had ducks on our farm too, so I can imagine what that might have been like.
Yes.
You kind of alluded to some life skills that kids can learn by interacting with chickens, raising chickens. Can you elaborate on that for us some?
Well, I mean, there's obviously just like self-sufficiency is certainly a lesson that you can learn from that. There's any number of skills, responsibility. Chickens don't care if you don't feel good or if you feel lazy or if you want to play video games or if you want to be on your phone, they just don't care. Like you have to go outside and take care of them.
Mhm,
So there's certainly all of that, good work ethic, all of those things. But for me, I think the most important lesson that we learn in the chicken yard is that, when you have chickens, inevitably because it's a flock and a flock is like a living being, it's you have like the individual chickens and then you have the flock, and the flock has its own personality and its own experiences and everything. And it's unpredictable. Like inevitably there's going to be things that happen that are unique to your situation. And it doesn't matter how many Facebook groups you're in that, to talk about chickens or how many chicken books you have. It is likely that you will come up against a situation where there's not a clear cut answer. And, even if you find, information, you could find there's a lot of conflicting information. So one of the things that I tell people, and in fact, in my book, I have like the 6 rules of mindful chicken keeping. And one of them is to listen to your heart. So it's important in these moments to remember this is not something new. Humans have been doing this for millennia. And over those many years, we used our wisdom, the wisdom of our ancestors, the wisdom that is innate within us to know what to do and to know how to take care of these animals. So there will be moments where you have to listen to your intuition.
mhm,
And I actually feel like that is possibly one of the most important life skills you will ever learn. Not just in the chicken yard, of course, but in your whole life, is to trust your heart, trust your intuition, listen to what you think is right, and then go with that. And you will make mistakes.
mhm, mhm.
And that's okay. We all, even here I am, the president of Chickenlandia. I have made mistakes. I've made big mistakes. I've had really hard lessons, but you learn and then you keep going.
Mhm,
And so to me, that's the most important lesson of the chicken yard or one of the most important is to go, when you need to, when you don't know what to do, turn inside and listen to what your intuition is telling you, listen to what your heart is telling you,
mhm.
and then go with that.
Right. I think that that really is applicable to homeschooling moms, and I am one of these
Yes.
homeschooling moms that I'm going to describe here where, I want to know that my path forward is expert approved. It's, recommended in all the major books and articles, like this is how you parent, this is how you teach this. This is,
Yeah.
and so often what the experts told me or what the book said wasn't right for me and my family, but I just didn't have the courage to go forward and make a mistake. And so I think I would like to just kind of add to what you were saying by suggesting that even if you follow the experts, the top most recommended advice out there for homeschooling, you will make mistakes. It's
Yes.
just, are you going to then blame the experts for being wrong, the book for being wrong, or are you going to blame yourself, you know?
Yeah.
So it's going to happen. It's just, who are you going to rely on um as you make those decisions? And you don't know. You are the expert, like Dahlia, you were saying, like, you became kind of an instant expert
Yes.
on raising chickens, and I love that, because I believe that as homeschooling moms, we become instant experts in educating our children. We are the closest to them. We spend the most time with them. We know them better than
Yep.
anyone else. Anyone doesn't,
Yes.
more than your doctor, more than your pastor, more than, some homeschool guru across
Yes.
the country or across the world. So I love your advice to trust in yourself. And I would just add for my Christian audience that that reliance on your intuition can be after spending time in prayer, after being in scripture, to feel like, okay, this is the path forward. And if it's not the right way, then God will intervene to show me that, nope, I'm on the wrong path, and I can just simply make a course correction. So
Oh, yes. And I think in anyone's experience there, whether you're religious or not, there's that moment
mhm,
where it's like, okay, I need to let go.
mhm,
I need to get, you might say, I'm gonna give this to God and decide
mhm,
decide from there.
mhm,
And
mhm.
I'm gonna be okay with that. And
Right.
so when I look at the chicken yard, I see a reflection of my own life, of the
Mhm,
world. And so there's so many lessons that I learned just right now talking to you, talking about following your intuition, talking about feeling insecure, and, there's all the experts and all that stuff. And it's amazing how it's like, okay, yeah, there's another thing that I can apply that I've learned from the chicken yard. It's like,
right.
nobody loves this flock more than I do. Nobody knows my
Mhm,
flock more than I do. Nobody, I remember telling a doctor this one time, there is nobody in this room that loves my child and cares more about what happens to my child than me.
right. It's true. Yeah,
So remember
absolutely
that.
true.
No one knows your
Absolutely.
flock more than you do.
Yep.
Nobody knows your children and your family better than you do.
Mhm. It's so true.
Ultimately, you're
Yeah,
the highest authority really when it comes to your family. So yeah.
no doubt. Okay, so if you are speaking to homeschooling parents who are new to chicken keeping, they're interested in it, they want to do it, what is a piece of advice that you would give them about integrating that practice of chicken keeping into their homeschooling and their curriculum?
Well, the number one thing I would say is take my course. Yeah.
I love that honesty. That's awesome.
You can work it into your curriculum. It's fun. But, aside from that, really the main thing is keep it simple and
Mm,
I know that, I mean, we just kind of touched on this. It can get very complicated. Like if you're if you're doing homeschool researching, there's any number of philosophies, any number of experts. They're all going to tell you this is the way that you need to do it. Okay.
mhm,
And if you go too far down that rabbit hole, it's really hard to get back out of it without being confused. So, what I would do is instead of just getting caught up in all of that, find somebody that you really resonate with, whether it's me or someone else. There's definitely other backyard chicken educators out there, and kind of stick with that.
mhm,
And then always, as your foundation, keep within you the idea that human beings have kept chickens for millennia, like literally millennia. We've
Mhm.
been doing this a
Mhm.
really long time. If you go to any other country in the world, you're going to see chickens running around. It's just one of those things that humans have done for a very long time, and we all have it in common. And then I would, especially if you're like, okay, we're in the research phase, it's easy to kind of get caught like stuck in that phase. So make a date, give yourself some wiggle room, like you want a week or two, like this is when we're going to get baby chicks. You can put it on the calendar. Your kids are going to be super excited about that. They're going to want to count down the months and the weeks and the days. Could be kind of like an Advent thing, um and then kind of stick with that. And I would start in the spring. Like there's a
Mhm.
reason why baby chicks are born, mother hens go broody in this broody. By broody, I mean they want to brood baby chicks. So they get that
Mhm.
that instinct kind of comes alive in them, mostly in the springtime or in the warmer months. And there is a very important reason for that. And it is that it is much easier to raise baby chicks during that time than it is when you're going into the colder months.
Mhm.
So, yeah, start in the spring and just go for it, and you can do it. And remember, there's no reason why you can't do it. People have been doing it for ages, for forever. You can definitely do it. So go
Yes.
for it and have fun.
You know, I just keep chuckling when you're saying this because the metaphors are just like flashing in neon lights here. The metaphors for homeschooling.
Yeah.
And so first you said, um, if just follow who you're going to follow, like get advice and just stay with them at least for a while, right? Because I think new homeschoolers will they'll say, "Oh, I'm going to listen to this person. I'm going to do like they do," and then it's like, "Oh, well, maybe someone else is doing it better, so then I'm going to switch over to that." And you just get so confused because you're going to get conflicting advice. And then when you were saying, people have been keeping chickens for millennia, well, people have been teaching their children for millennia too. Right?
And somehow we've survived.
Exactly. And then, you said you can just get so stuck in the research phase. I mean,
Oh
a
yeah.
metaphor for homeschooling too.
Yeah.
That is how we are, I think, just as people. I mean, just to kind of give you a little tangent, this morning, my brother-in-law, he and his family are going to play pickleball with us in a couple of weeks, and he's very excited about it. He hasn't played, and he wants advice for which pickleball paddle to buy. And I mean, so I tell him it's like, it doesn't matter that much, it's like, okay, how about this one? And then he's coming back and saying, well, I mean, but there are a lot more expensive ones, and this one doesn't come with a cover. It's like, okay. And I know you're understanding where I'm going with this. It's like, okay,
Yes.
yeah, you're overthinking it, you're
Yes.
over researching it. You just have to get a paddle, and I'm sure when it comes to keeping chickens, you have to get some baby chicks, and
Yep.
you have to get some essentials, but it's really not going to make or break you, like which materials and supplies that you buy versus some others. Am I right about that?
Usually, I mean, most of it's pretty cut and dry. It's really very simple. If you think about what chickens need, they need baby chicks need to be warm. They need a safe
Mhm.
place to be. Think about what a mother hen provides for her baby chicks. They need food. They need water. Of course, there are many other things that you can do. I mean, I've written a whole book about it, like natural things and herbs and all these things that you can do. But always your foundation should be chickens have been with us for millennia. They are highly adaptable. They've been with us through war, through famine, through natural disaster, so many things that they have persevered
Mhm.
alongside humans
Right.
through. So just keep that in mind. And I would say find someone, because there's so many different opinions out there. Find someone
Mhm.
that you relate with kind of on a personal level. Like you like how they are, you like kind of what their worldview is, and stay with them.
Yes.
And it's so
Yes.
funny. I mean, I've had the whole homeschooling experience, and so I'm really familiar also with what you're saying, and the kind of the connections that you're making, because it's so easy to just get really caught up and really confused, and then your kid ends up suffering from that, and you're suffering. No one's happy. And
Mhm.
in those moments, just remember, okay, let's pull back and just go back to the
Right.
basics.
Right. And,
Yeah.
again, I'm just smiling because you're saying, chickens are adaptable. It's like,
Yes.
yeah, so are children. Children are adaptable. They've survived
Yes.
for all these years. And I mean, I love what you're saying too. It's like, because you were specifically referencing homeschooling there, that our kids are actually going to suffer more from our anxiety and upset and stress than they
Yes.
will about, well, you chose this particular math curriculum. I mean, why did you choose that?
Yes.
That isn't going to make or break a child's homeschooling. And I think
Yes.
it's just so good. I mean, we know this, I think, but I just love and appreciate that you're giving us that reminder. So, related to that, you talk about chickens helping us connect better with ourselves and each other. And I would love to have you explain more about that.
Well, I did a whole TEDx talk about it.
Okay.
That's kind of how I got on the map. But I feel like, at least in the Western world, we've all, most of us have been disconnected from nature in some part at some point in our family history. And it's really kind of a collective trauma in the Western world. We all kind of suffering from that. And it doesn't matter like what your heritage is, where you're from, what race you are, what religion you are. We kind of all have this severance in our history. And chickens, for at least for me, have been a big part of healing that trauma. Like I said before, they force you to connect with nature, and it's not,
Hmm.
you will want to do it. Like once you have them and you're caring for them, you want to go outside and you want to be with them, but you have to do that every single day. You have to take those moments. And for me, it's just a time when I can be still. I can listen to the little sounds that they make. I can watch them pecking and scratching, and it's like a meditation or a prayer for me.
Hmm.
And that is so important for us to have in our lives. And for most of us, that's been taken away. So when we begin to have those experiences again, and certainly in any kind of, like, if you use it as an educational tool, you can really lean into this idea of learning more about yourself. Like, as you learn about that history, about that ancestry, you learn more about yourself. You learn that we all kind of have that connection. And I also feel like when we learn more about where we come from, about what our ancestry is, we're more likely to honor and recognize that uniqueness in others. And we're more likely to be compassionate towards our fellow human being. And my motto from the beginning has been, chickens are humankind's most amazing common denominator. And they really are. Like, there are very few cultures in the world. Gosh, I can't even think of one, probably some very remote culture somewhere, that doesn't have chickens within it in a significant way.
Hmm.
So we all kind of share it. Um, so I just like to focus on that, especially right now when there's so much division in the world, and it's really hard sometimes, and certainly for children to understand that. But I wish for everyone to have that experience and to have that knowledge that, what, we all share certain things, and it's important for us to focus on that. So That's what I try to, that's
Yeah,
just part of like spreading the peace and joy of chickens.
I love it. Well, that is a beautiful sentiment to end with, and I appreciate you sharing that. But now I would love to have you tell us where we can get your course and see other resources that you have created for people wanting to raise chickens.
Well, everything that is Chickenlandia related, you can find on my website, welcome to chickenlandia.com. I have a course, it's an online course. But you will, there is a place in the course where you can ask me questions directly. So a lot of people really like that, but you can take the course at your own leisure. And I would say, probably about, it depends on the child, but if they're less than like 10 years old, then you probably need to go through the course with them. And then depending on their learning level above that, sometimes they can do the course on their own. Um, but the whole family can do it. It's very easy. It's a lot of videos and some quizzes and stuff like that. But you can find information on that on welcometochickenlandia.com. You can also find information about my book. I had a book published in February through Story Publishing. It's called Let's All Keep Chickens.
Okay.
Because I do think we should all keep chickens. You can find information about that. And then my biggest presence is on YouTube. So my YouTube channel is called Welcome to Chickenlandia. And you can certainly, there's tons of free videos, lots of information that you can get just from watching my YouTube channel. I think people like the course because it's like, it is structured and also you have direct access to me. So really what you're paying for is the structure of it.
Mm-hmm.
But there is any number of free advice on my YouTube channel. And then also my podcast is called Bach Talk, and that's TAWK.
Okay. TAWK. That's cool.
Yeah.
That
And
is
all of
so
this is
cute.
on welcome to chickenlandia.com. You can find access to it.
Well, that is perfect. So this has been so much fun, and I know my listeners, they've probably stopped listening to us right now, and they're already on YouTube looking at all your stuff and on your website, and I hope that they are. Thank you so much, Dalia, for taking time to share with us today. It has been a lot of fun.
Oh, you are so welcome. It was my pleasure.
Yeah.